Good evening, everyone. I am Elizabeth Vargas. It is day 2 of a trial that has riveted the nation. A black teenager is accused of stabbing and killing a white teenager at a Texas high school track meet last April. But the racially charged trial isn't about whether he did it. It's about whether he did it in self-defense. Now 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony is facing life in prison if convicted of first-degree murder. He's accused of stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in the heart with a folding knife after the two had an argument. Prosecutors say Anthony provoked the confrontation by entering and then refusing to leave a rival high school's team tent. They say he then stabbed Metcalf in a, quote, sneak attack. The defense counters that Metcalf started the fight and Anthony reacted in a split second out of fear. The case has drawn tense and highly charged protests outside the Texas courthouse.
Failures as black parents, teaching the youth to kill.
Some protesters have used the trial as an opportunity to try and ignite racial debate. That is exactly what Austin Metcalf's father did not want to happen. Here's what he said last year, just a day after his son was killed.
This was not a race thing, and this is not a political thing. Please do not comment if you do not know what happened. Do not turn this into a racial thing. It was not. Do not politicize this. It's not. This is a human being thing. This person made a bad choice, and it affected both his family and my family forever.
Today, jurors saw the immediate aftermath of the deadly dispute. They watched 4 minutes of body cam footage from a school resource police officer who put Anthony in handcuffs. The officer testified that Anthony told him, quote, "I'm not alleged, I did it. He put his hands on me. I told him not to." Let's begin tonight with News Nation's Brooke Schaefer, who is live for us outside that courthouse in McKinney, Texas. Brooke, court just wrapped up for the day. Break down today's developments, what the jury saw and heard, and, of course, the scene outside that courthouse.
Elizabeth, another very emotional day, both inside and outside of the courtroom, where again today we saw more demonstrations, including from Enrique Tarrio, a far-right activist and former Proud Boys leader. He was here today outside of the Collin County Courthouse. At times we saw him arguing with a group of supporters for Karmelo Anthony, that 19-year-old currently on trial, as witnesses continued to take the stand inside. Today, Elizabeth, the jury heard new details on what led up to this deadly stabbing and the fight under a tent belonging to Austin Metcalf's high school track team. Several young witnesses testified. One of them told the jury both Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony were angry and aggressive. Several witnesses told the jury Anthony, who's on trial, was provoking, but that Austin Metcalf stood over him and pushed him. That is when Karmelo Anthony, they said, pulled out a knife. The jury today also watched some graphic video of the moments after the deadly stabbing. A difficult and very emotional moment for family and friends inside the gallery as they, too, watched all of this play out. The jury also saw today video of then 18-year-old Karmelo Anthony placed in handcuffs, crying on that video, telling officers, quote, "I told him not to put his hands on me." The defense today with that video reiterating that this, they say, was self-defense, that Anthony did not try to run away from the scene, that he was cooperative with investigators. The prosecutors, though, on the flip side, still arguing this was senseless murder. Elizabeth?
All right, Brooke Schaefer outside that courthouse. Thank you. Let's bring in our legal experts now. Neama Rahmani is a former federal prosecutor, and Brian Claypool is a criminal defense attorney. Great to have both of you here. Neama, a 16-year-old teammate of Austin Metcalf's, testified that the day was completely normal. It was a morning. They were all there for this track meet. It was raining. The teens were all sitting under a tent during a rain delay when they saw Karmelo Anthony walk up and stand under their tent. He said almost immediately Austin Metcalf confronted Karmelo Anthony and told him several times to leave, and that Anthony refused. What do you make of that?
Very powerful testimony today, Elizabeth, when you have these high school students really being percipient witnesses to this tragic stabbing. And the fact that you had them describing Carmelo Anthony walking into this tent, being asked to leave. And I'm not saying he necessarily had to leave, but it was certainly helpful evidence for the prosecution because you have Anthony admitting that he shouldn't bring a knife to a school event and then reaching into the backpack, right? Now, again, he did warn Metcalf not to touch him. But the fact that he brought the knife, he had his hand in his backpack, it really cuts against the defense's argument that this was a split-second reaction and he had to stab Anthony, not just anywhere, but, stab Metcalf, but in the heart, right? Yeah. In the chest near there. I think that was very strong evidence for the prosecution today.
Yeah, Brian, we have yet to hear nowhere in the opening arguments yesterday or in any of the cross-examinations from the defense team, we've yet to hear any explanation for why Carmelo Anthony was carrying a knife. We don't know if he felt he was being threatened somehow. We don't know if the school he went to was rough. I've heard of kids who go to really rough schools and feel somehow they have to carry a knife to protect themselves. We don't know if he's from a neighborhood where he would have felt like that. There's been absolutely nothing as to why he would bring a knife to a track meet when weapons are prohibited.
Well, Elizabeth, you just helped me make my biggest point in this case. Carmelo Anthony will need to testify at this trial. If I was representing him, I would have already had a conversation with him that you need to testify. You need to provide the jury with the backstory, just what you're talking about. What has his life been like? Has he been threatened, for example, by kids at his school or other schools? Has he been bullied? I've worked on a lot of bullying cases out here in California that have led to serious injury and a death a year or two ago. So we need to know what's in his mind as to why he's going to carry a knife. Did he live in a rough neighborhood? Was he assaulted before? Right?
Yeah.
And look, he had a right to be at that track meet. His school was participating. I believe he was even supposed to be participating.
Yeah, he was competing. He was captain of the track team.
Right. So he takes a backpack. I coach basketball. Our players have backpacks all the time. That's like a badge of honor. But look, he may have had that knife in there because he feared for his safety. But I think there was some testimony today that did help his case. And that is that it's unequivocal that Metcalf put his hands on Anthony. And I see it a little bit different, Elizabeth and Neama. The fact that Carmelo's got his hands in the backpack, I don't think he woke up and said, I'm going to go stab somebody today. He was afraid. That's why he had his hands there. And Elizabeth, witnesses have said that he said more than once, I've got something in this bag. That's his way of signaling to Metcalf and his entourage that, look, I don't want to go there. Please let me alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, I think there's some good argument.
Neama, I'm curious. I'm sure this will come up at some point, but police reports show that Carmelo Anthony was 5'9" and 130 pounds. School sports records show that Austin Metcalf was 6 feet and nearly 100 pounds bigger, heavier. He was a star linebacker, very, very good football player. He was 200 to 225 pounds. Will the defense try to make something out of the fact that Austin Metcalf was bigger and that therefore Carmelo Anthony might have felt intimidated or afraid?
Absolutely. The reports are he was at least 50 pounds, maybe up to 100 pounds bigger than him. His twin brother was there. Obviously, his teammates were there. I mean, Anthony does walk into a rival team's tent, so that's going to be an important factor as well. But no question, the size difference, the number of people, that all goes to his state of mind and the reasonableness of his response. Did he think he was going to be jumped? There was some testimony today that it was shoved with one arm in the shoulder. Other people said two, right? What was the nature of the
arms
initial...
on both shoulders, hands on both shoulders.
I think that's important as well, right? Does he think he's about to get jumped and beat up? Again, I still think the response
but he could have walked out of the tent. Exactly. I mean, if he really thought
he's a track star. Yeah, he can run away, right? I mean, obviously you don't have to run away. You can stand your ground in Texas. We know that. But again, I think this whole case comes down to whether the response was reasonable and proportionate. That's it. It's clear that he was assaulted. It's clear that Metcalf was the initial aggressor. But that doesn't mean you can shoot to kill or stab to kill. You can't use deadly force, again, unless there's that imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury. And I don't think we're there yet. We'll see what the defense tries to pull out of its hat. But so far, obviously, in the prosecution's case in chief, I do think they have the clear advantage here.
Brian, what do you make of the fact that the prosecutors are trying to argue that it was Karmelo Anthony who provoked the fight because he was the one who walked into that rival high school's tent? We should say that Karmelo Anthony's own high school reportedly didn't have a rain tent. That's why he was seeking shelter from the rain. This was a rain delay, and all the kids were going under their team tents to escape the rain.
Yeah, Elizabeth, before I answer that, one other point I wanted to make about Anthony's defense. If you think about this young man, he was doing well in school. I believe he was an A to B student.
Both boys were very, very good students, students.
Exactly, but what Karmelo Anthony has everything to lose, nothing to gain by doing this to start with. He had talked to some colleges, just like Metcalf had, about possibly playing D1 football after this, after they graduated. That said, look, this is horrible, no winners. But look, this young man went into a tent, like you said. It was raining. He didn't go sit next to somebody to pick a fight. He was looking for cover. And I think this is going to be tough for the jury because Metcalf and the guys around him, his brother, they kind of came off like they were jostling with Anthony, that they were kind of, instigating, that they were kind of being somewhat of a bully toward Anthony. And you're right. Everybody's right. Hey, look, he could have gotten up and walked away.
Yeah, why didn't he? Super quick, Neama, why are they charging him with first-degree murder? That first-degree murder is intent, murder with intent. You go someplace intending to kill somebody. There's no evidence he intended to kill Austin Metcalf until that split second when he pulled the knife and stabbed him. Or are we going to hear evidence of something? What do you make of that?
Well, I think sometimes prosecutors, they overcharge, so they have a fallback, which is the manslaughter. I think we talked about it yesterday, right? Was this unreasonable? I think the prosecution would, frankly, maybe consider that a win. I don't know what offer was made before trial. I think that's probably the appropriate disposition if a deal would be made. I don't think anyone would be happy, but sometimes that would be the best result here.
So the first-degree murder charge is an overcharge in an attempt to later negotiate?
Well, what you want to do is, if you're prosecutors, if you think you can prove it, a first-degree or malice murder, right? Okay. You don't necessarily have to be premeditated, but he did bring a knife to an event.
He sure did.
Warn. So that's enough under the law for it to be premeditated. You don't necessarily have to be lying in wait.
Right. It's so awful for, obviously, for Austin Metcalf's family, who suffered an unimaginable loss. But also, in many cases, it's, as Austin Metcalf's own father said, it's a terrible thing for both families here, and they'll have to deal with it for the rest of their lives. All right, Neama, Rahmani, Brian, Claypool, thank you both so much. Really appreciate it.